This is Crazy Karen HOA. And the timeline is absurd. You cannot park here during a declared snow emergency. That is what Donna Stewart screamed at me in my own driveway at 5:45 in the morning, waving a tow truck remote control like it gave her some kind of divine authority. Snow was coming down so hard I could barely see her face across the hood of my car, but I could hear her just fine. The Maple and Meltwater Property Owners Association had declared enforcement active as of midnight, she said, and my vehicle was in violation. I would be cited, towed, and fined if I did not move it immediately. I am a network engineer. I work from home most nights, tracking access logs and audit trails for systems that need to stay secure. I know how to spot inconsistencies, and Donna Stewart had just triggered every red flag in my mental checklist. I had never received notice of a snow emergency declaration. No email, no group text, no paper flyer, nothing. She jabbed her finger at the sticker on my windshield. The rules do not care about your excuses, and neither do I, she snapped. That was her favorite line. I had heard it twice before in group emails where she publicly shamed other residents for imaginary infractions. Now it was my turn. I pulled out my phone and opened the association portal. No alerts. No emergency postings. I checked my email. Nothing from the HOA since a routine landscaping update 3 weeks ago. I looked back at Donna. She was holding a clipboard with one gloved hand and tapping it with the remote control like she was conducting an orchestra of misery. "When did you send the notice?" I asked. She did not blink. "Last night at 11:58. Standard protocol. You should have checked your email." I pulled up my email again, refreshed it twice. Still nothing. I turned the screen toward her. "The last HOA email I have is from 3 weeks ago." Her smile did not reach her eyes. "Not my problem. You are responsible for monitoring communications. If you missed it, that is on you." Behind her, the tow truck driver climbed out of the cab, a portable battery pack in hand, checking the hookup. I felt my pulse spike. I have a home-based business license tied to this address. If the HOA started flagging me for code violations or compliance failures, the city could yank that license. I could not afford that. My entire client base depended on me being able to work from this property. "I need to see the declaration document," I said. "Show me the timestamp and the distribution list." Donna tucked the clipboard under her arm. "You are not the first person I have corrected, and you will not be the last. The process is the process. If you want records, you can file a formal request and pay the copy fees. 30-day turnaround, standard." I wrote down every word, because later I planned to read them back to her. I knew this was not standard enforcement. I had read the covenants when I bought the house. Snow emergency protocol required 48 hours notice for non-life-threatening weather and 12 hours minimum for active declarations. An email sent at midnight for enforcement starting at midnight was not compliance. It was ambush. But Donna was already walking back toward the tow truck, motioning for the driver to proceed. I stepped in front of my car. "I am not moving until I see the declaration." She whipped around, her face red even in the freezing wind. "You are obstructing HOA enforcement. That is another violation. I can add it to your file right now." The tow driver looked uncomfortable. He glanced at Donna, then at me, then at the clipboard. "Lady," he said slowly, "if he is saying he did not get notice, maybe we should hold off until you clear it with the management company." Donna turned on him like he had just volunteered for her next target. "You work for the association. You do what I tell you." "Hook it." The driver hesitated. I pulled out my phone again and opened the payment portal. I scrolled through every transaction I had made to the HOA over the past 18 months. Every dues payment, every special assessment, every seasonal fee, all confirmed, all on time. I had screenshots going back 2 years because I had learned early that Maple and Meltwater loved to claim missing payments and then slap on late fees. I am current on all dues, I said, loud enough for the driver to hear. I have confirmations for every payment. If she is claiming I owe fees, she is lying. Donna took 3 steps toward me, close enough that I could see the frost on her earmuffs. You think you are clever because you have receipts. Receipts do not change the rules. You violated the emergency parking order. You will be towed, you will be fined, and if you keep arguing, I will make sure the board reviews your business license compliance at the next meeting. That was the stakes. She had just said it out loud. My business license was leverage. And she knew it. I took a breath. I am filing a formal records request today. I want the emergency declaration, the board vote authorizing it, the notice distribution log, and the enforcement policy. All of it. She smiled. 30 days. $60 in copy fees. Payable in advance. That was escalation step 2. She was using bureaucracy as a weapon, trying to bury me in delays and fees while she kept piling on violations. I knew the game. I had seen her do it to other neighbors. One guy 2 streets over had been hit with $1,800 in fines over an unapproved fence stain color. Another family got cited for holiday lights left up past January 5th, even though half the streets still had theirs up. Donna did not enforce rules. She weaponized them. The tow driver was still standing by the truck, looking at his phone. Donna shot him a glare. Any time now. He shook his head. I need authorization from the management company before I tow from a private driveway. That is my policy. If he is disputing notice, I am not touching it until I get a signature from someone other than you. Donna went silent for 3 full seconds. Then she spun toward me. This is not over. You just bought yourself a full compliance audit. Every inch of your property, every permit, every business registration. I will find something. She stormed off toward her own car, dragging a torn bag of ice melt behind her like a prop. That bag showed up at every HOA meeting. She would set it on the table, talk about winter safety, and then segue into whatever new enforcement push she was championing that month. It was her signature move, and it was as performative as everything else she did. The tow driver walked over to me. Look, he said quietly, I do not know what is going on with your HOA, but I am not hooking your car without proper notice. She tried to tell me it was standard, but I have done 100 snow emergency tows, and none of them went like this. If you did not get an email, that is a problem. I nodded. Thanks for not caving to her. He shrugged. I have been yelled at by worse. She is going to call my boss, though. Just warning you. I watched Donna's car pull away, taillights disappearing into the whiteout. The snow was coming down even harder now, visibility dropping fast. I went inside, grabbed my laptop, and started pulling records. First stop was the HOA portal. I logged in, checked the announcement archive, and filtered by date. The last emergency declaration was posted 11 months ago during a spring ice storm. Nothing recent. I checked the document repository. Nothing uploaded in the past 72 hours. I checked the board meeting minutes. The last meeting was 4 weeks ago. No mention of a snow emergency vote. I opened my email client and ran a server-side search for any messages from the HOA domain in the past week. One result. A landscaping update. That was it. No emergency declaration. No board memo. No compliance bulletin. I called the management company. It was barely past 6 in the morning, so I got voicemail. I left a message requesting copies of the emergency declaration, the notice distribution log, and any board authorizations related to enforcement actions in the past 48 hours. I kept my tone calm and factual because I knew everything I said could end up in a hearing transcript later. Then I called my ally. Ed Ramirez lived 4 houses down. He was a retired police officer who had spent 30 years in Fairbanks Patrol before moving into investigator work. He knew HOA law, he knew enforcement limits, and he had zero patience for Donna Stewart. She had tried to fine him once for parking his camper on his own driveway during the off-season. He responded by filing a complaint with the State Attorney General's office over selective enforcement. The fine disappeared. Ed picked up on the second ring. "You okay?" he asked. I heard a tow truck on the street. I filled him in. The missing notice, the midnight enforcement, the threat against my business license, the records denial. Ed listened without interrupting, which was his style. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. "She is escalating," he said. "That means she is either confident she has the votes to back her up, or she is panicking because someone is about to call her bluff. Either way, you need to document everything. Every email, every notice, every conversation. If she is lying about the emergency declaration, that is fraud. If she is threatening your business license without cause, that is harassment. You have leverage. You just have to use it." I told him about the records request. He made a low noise. $60 and 30 days. That is obstruction. The bylaws say records requests get fulfilled within 10 business days unless there is a legitimate privacy concern. Parking enforcement is not private. She is stalling because she does not want you to see the proof. "What proof?" I asked. "That she made it up," Ed said flatly. "Or that the vote was never taken. Or that she did not send the notice to everyone. Pick one. She is dirty. And you just caught her." I asked Ed if he could pull the board meeting minutes from his own portal access. He said he would check and call me back. I hung up and opened my photo archive. I had taken pictures of every HOA notice I had ever received, every fine threat, every compliance letter. It was a habit I developed 6 months into ownership, when I realized Donna liked to send threatening emails and then claim she had never sent them when challenged. I had learned to screenshot everything. I scrolled back through the past year. Donna had sent me exactly 4 enforcement notices. One for a trash can left out past collection day, which I had moved within the hour. One for a holiday decoration extension cord that allegedly crossed the sidewalk, which it did not. One for an unapproved exterior light fixture, which was actually original to the house and predated the covenants. And one for a snow pile placed too close to the street, which I had moved after confirming the actual covenant language allowed front yard piling as long as it did not block sightlines. Every single notice had been bogus or exaggerated. Every single one had been challenged. Every single one had been quietly dropped after I provided documentation. Donna never apologized. She just moved on to the next target. Ed called back 20 minutes later. I pulled the minutes from the last 3 board meetings, he said. No snow emergency authorization. No vote. No discussion. The only weather-related topic was a budget line item for extra salt this season. That is it. So Donna just invented the emergency, I said. looks that way. Or she sent the email to herself and her inner circle and skipped everyone else. Either way, you have grounds to challenge. But here is the thing. If you go after her now, she is going to retaliate. You already know she threatened your business license. She will keep escalating until you either fold or you take her down completely. Half measures do not work with people like her. I know, I said. I am not folding. Good. Then you need to think bigger than a records request. You need to go to the board attorney. You need to file a formal complaint. And you need to show up at the next meeting with witnesses and documentation that she cannot spin. Make it public. Make it undeniable. I thanked Ed and hung up. The snow outside had slowed to scattered flurries, but the damage was done. Visibility had been near zero during the supposed enforcement window, which made the whole tow threat even more absurd. Nobody could have safely cleared the streets or verified violations in that whiteout. Donna had used the weather as cover. I spent the next 2 hours compiling my evidence file. Payment confirmations showing I was current on all dues. Email archives proving I had received no emergency notice. Screenshots of the HOA portal showing no posted declaration. Photos of my car in my own driveway, clearly not blocking any street or access route. I saved everything to 3 separate drives and uploaded a copy to a secure cloud account. If Donna wanted a paper trail, she was about to drown in one. At 9:15, my phone buzzed. It was a group email from the Maple and Meltwater Compliance Committee. Subject line: Parking violations and enforcement escalation. I opened it. The email was from Donna, sent to the full resident list. It claimed that multiple properties had been cited for snow emergency parking violations overnight, and that the association was moving to an accelerated enforcement model due to repeated non-compliance. Residents with outstanding citations would receive final notice within 72 hours. Failure to resolve violations would result in automatic towing and lien filings. She had just gone nuclear. And she had done it in writing, in front of the entire neighborhood. If you are enjoying this chaos, hit the like button and subscribe for more HOA nightmare stories. I forwarded the email to Ed with a single line. She just threatened the whole neighborhood. He replied in under a minute. Now she is exposed. Forward it to the management company and the board attorney. CC yourself. She just committed to a policy in writing that contradicts the bylaws. That is your smoking gun. I drafted the email carefully. I addressed it to the management company president and the HOA attorney, copied the board, and attached my evidence file. I kept the tone professional and factual. I noted the missing emergency declaration, the lack of notice, the contradiction between Donna's group email and the board meeting minutes, and the threat against my business license. I requested an immediate review and a stay on all enforcement actions until proper notice procedures were followed. I hit send. Within 40 minutes, I had a reply from the management company. They acknowledged receipt and said they were reviewing the matter with the board attorney. They requested that all enforcement actions be suspended pending clarification of the emergency declaration process. They also noted that any threats related to business licenses or liens required full board approval and could not be issued unilaterally by a single officer. That was the first crack in Donna's armor. 10 minutes later, another group email hit the list. This one was from the board president, a man named Carl Hughes, who mostly stayed out of the day-to-day enforcement circus. He announced that the board would hold a special meeting in 5 days to review compliance procedures and address resident concerns about notice protocols. All residents were invited to attend. Public comment would be allowed. Donna did not reply. But I knew she was reading it, and I knew she was furious. That afternoon, I got a knock on my door. I opened it to find a man in a utility vest, tool bag slung over his shoulder. He introduced himself as a gate technician contracted to check access systems in the neighborhood. He said he had been walking up the street during the tow truck confrontation that morning and had seen the whole thing. "I did not mean to eavesdrop," he said, "but I heard her threaten you about your business license. That did not sit right with me. I have worked with a lot of HOAs, and I have never seen someone use enforcement like that. If you need a witness statement, I am happy to provide one." I thanked him and took his contact information. That was 2 allies now, Ed and the gate tech. If Donna tried to claim the confrontation had been civil or procedural, I had witnesses who would say otherwise. The next 2 days were quiet. No more emails from Donna. No more tow threats. But I knew it was not over. She was regrouping, talking to her allies on the board, looking for a way to spin the narrative. I used the time to prepare. I printed copies of every document in my evidence file. I organized them into a binder with tabs and highlights. I wrote a 3-page statement summarizing the timeline, the missing notice, the retaliatory threats, and the management company's response. I kept it factual and unemotional. I did not call Donna names. I did not speculate about motives. I just laid out what had happened and what the bylaws required. Ed called the night before the meeting. "You ready?" he asked. "I think so." "Good. Because she is going to come at you hard." I heard from a friend on the landscape committee that Donna has been making calls, trying to line up support. She is telling people you are a troublemaker who does not respect the rules, and that you are trying to undermine HOA authority. She is framing this as a referendum on enforcement, not on her behavior. "That is fine," I said. "Let her frame it however she wants. I have the documents." She does not. Just be ready for her to pivot. If she cannot win on the facts, she will try to win on emotion. She will make it about safety, about liability, about protecting property values. She will try to make you the villain. I know. I have seen her do it before. Ed was quiet for a second. "One more thing. I talked to a couple of other neighbors who got hit with bogus fines in the past year. They are willing to show up at the meeting and speak. Donna does not know it yet, but she is about to face a room full of people who are done with her games." The special meeting was held in the community clubhouse on a Thursday night. I arrived 15 minutes early. The room was already filling up. I recognized at least a dozen residents I had never seen at a meeting before. That was a good sign. Donna had pissed off enough people that they were willing to brave the cold and show up. Ed was already there, sitting near the front with his own binder. He gave me a nod. I took a seat 2 rows back. I wanted to be visible but not confrontational. Donna walked in at exactly 7, carrying her torn bag of ice melt and a thick folder. She set both on the table at the front, then took her seat next to Carl Hughes and the other board members. She did not look at me. She did not look at anyone. She just stared straight ahead, her face blank. Carl called the meeting to order and read a brief statement. He said the board had received complaints about enforcement procedures and notice protocols, and that the purpose of tonight's meeting was to review those procedures and hear from residents. He emphasized that the board was committed to fair and transparent governance, and that all input would be taken seriously. Then he opened the floor for public comment. I stood up first. I kept my voice calm and even. I walked through the timeline. The tow warning with no notice. The missing emergency declaration. The threat against my business license. The records request denial. The group email sent after the fact. I referenced the bylaws, the management company's response, and the board attorney's recommendation to suspend enforcement. I did not editorialize. I just presented the facts. When I finished, Donna stood up. She did not wait for Carl to recognize her. She just started talking. "This is exactly what I warned the board about," she said. "Residents who think the rules do not apply to them. Residents who waste everyone's time with frivolous complaints because they got caught violating a simple policy." The emergency declaration was sent. If he did not receive it, that is a technology issue, not an HOA issue. We are not responsible for his email filters or his failure to monitor communications. I held up my phone. I have server logs showing no email from the HOA domain in the past week except for a landscaping update. I can provide those logs to the board attorney if needed. Donna's face went red. Server logs can be manipulated. Ed stood up from the front row. I am a retired police investigator. I know what manipulated evidence looks like. This is not it. And I also pulled the board meeting minutes. There is no record of a vote authorizing the emergency declaration. If you sent an email, it was not backed by board action. That makes it invalid. Donna turned on him. You do not have access to board minutes. Ed smiled. Actually, I do. Every resident has access under the bylaws. You should read them sometime. Another resident stood up. A woman in her 60s who lived near the south gate. She said Donna had fined her $200 last spring for an unapproved mailbox color, even though the mailbox was the same color as 6 others on the street. She said she had paid the fine because Donna threatened to file a lien, but she had never received a copy of the Architectural Review Board decision that supposedly authorized the fine. Then another resident stood up. A man in his 40s who said Donna had tried to tow his work truck during a fabricated parking violation, and that he had only avoided the tow by calling the police. He said the officer who responded told him the HOA had no authority to tow vehicles from private driveways without a court order. Then another. And another. By the time the 5th resident finished speaking, the room was buzzing. Carl looked shaken. The other board members were whispering to each other. Donna was gripping the edge of the table, her knuckles white. Carl cleared his throat. It sounds like there are serious concerns about enforcement consistency and notice procedures. I think we need to table any further enforcement actions until we can conduct a full audit of our policies and make sure we are in compliance with the bylaws and state law. Donna stood up again. You are letting them bully you into paralysis. If we stop enforcing the rules, this neighborhood will turn into chaos. Property values will tank. Insurance rates will skyrocket. You are giving in to a vocal minority who do not want accountability. Ed stood up again. If enforcement is so important, why are you not current on your own dues? The room went dead silent. Donna froze. What are you talking about? Ed pulled a paper from his binder. I pulled the dues ledger from the portal this afternoon. Public record. You are 4 months behind. That is over $600 in unpaid dues, plus late fees. Donna's face went from red to white. That is a clerical error. I paid those. Then you should have the receipts. Just like he does. Ed gestured at me. I held up my binder. Donna did not say anything. She just sat down. Carl looked at the other board members. I think we need to recess and consult with the attorney. This meeting is adjourned. We will reconvene in 1 week with a full policy review. The meeting broke up. Residents filed out slowly, talking in clusters. Several people came up to me and thanked me for speaking up. One man said he had been afraid to challenge Donna because she had a reputation for retaliation, but now he felt like maybe things could change. Ed clapped me on the shoulder. That was the twist. She has been lecturing everyone about compliance while skipping her own payments. That is the kind of hypocrisy that destroys credibility. I asked Ed how he had found the dues ledger. He grinned. I did not. A friend on the finance committee leaked it to me this afternoon. Apparently, Donna has been stonewalling requests for a full financial audit, and people are starting to ask why. That was the thread I needed to pull. If Donna was hiding the ledger, there was a reason. And if the dues records were messy, the fee records might be worse. I went home and pulled up the HOA budget from the portal. It was a dense spreadsheet, 70 pages of line items and categories. I started searching for snow emergency fees, towing fees, enforcement surcharges. I found references to a winter compliance fee that was supposed to be assessed quarterly for properties that required extra monitoring during snow season. The fee was listed as $50 per quarter. I cross-referenced it with my payment history. I had never been charged that fee. I checked Ed's history. He had not been charged either. I checked the payment records for 5 other neighbors. None of them had been charged. I went back to the budget and looked at the revenue column. The winter compliance fee line showed $3,000 in collected revenue for the current fiscal year. If nobody was being charged the fee, where was the money coming from? I called Ed. He answered on the first ring. "You are going to want to hear this," I said. I walked him through the fee discrepancy. He listened, then swore under his breath. "She is cooking the books. That fee does not exist. She invented it to pad the budget and then blamed enforcement shortfalls on resident non-compliance. That is fraud." "Can we prove it?" I asked. "If you can get copies of the ledger entries showing who was supposedly charged that fee, yes. But that is going to require a records request. And she already tried to block you once." I thought about it. The management company had overruled her on the enforcement suspension. Maybe they would overrule her on records access too. I sent another email to the management company, copying the board and the attorney. I requested a full audit of winter compliance fee assessments for the current fiscal year, including transaction logs, recipient accounts, and board authorizations. I cited the budget discrepancy and noted that the fee did not appear in any resident payment history I could access. The reply came within 2 hours. The management company president said they were launching an internal review of all fee assessments and would provide a preliminary report within 1 week. They also said that any fees assessed without proper board authorization would be reversed and refunded. That was the second crack. The next morning, my contractor called. He was supposed to start a minor siding repair that week, but he said he was pulling out. I asked why. He hesitated, then said Donna had called him and told him my property was under compliance review and that any work performed without HOA pre-approval would be considered a violation. She told him he would be blacklisted from future HOA projects if he proceeded. That was set piece 2. She was going after my vendors, trying to isolate me and make it impossible to maintain my property. It was petty, it was illegal, and it was desperate. I asked my contractor if he would be willing to provide a statement about the threat. He said yes. He was tired of HOA boards abusing small contractors. He sent me an email summary that same afternoon, and I forwarded it to the management company and the attorney. The response was immediate. The attorney sent a letter to Donna, copied to the full board, stating that vendor interference constituted tortious interference with contract and could expose the HOA to liability. He ordered her to cease all contact with third-party contractors related to my property. That was the third crack. The week before the reconvened meeting, the management company released their preliminary audit report. It was 32 pages long. The summary section noted multiple irregularities in fee assessments, including a winter compliance fee that had been added to the budget without board approval and never assessed to any resident accounts. The report also noted discrepancies in towing fee revenue, where expenses were recorded but no corresponding resident charges appeared in the ledger. In other words, Donna had been inventing fees, recording them as revenue, and pocketing the difference. The report recommended a full forensic audit and suggested that the board consider suspending the treasurer pending the outcome of the investigation. It also recommended that all enforcement actions taken in the past 18 months be reviewed for procedural compliance. Ed called me that night. She is done. The board cannot ignore this. If they try to protect her, they are complicit. This is going to blow up the whole leadership structure. What happens at the meeting? I asked. Public shaming. Resignations. Possibly a recall vote if the board does not act fast enough. And if she has been stealing money, criminal charges. I felt a weird mix of relief and exhaustion. I had just wanted her to stop harassing me. Now I was holding evidence that could put her in jail. The reconvened meeting was standing room only. The room was packed. Residents who had never attended a meeting in 10 years showed up. People were angry. The audit report had leaked, and everyone knew what it said. Carl opened the meeting by reading a statement from the board attorney. The attorney recommended that the board immediately suspend the treasurer, freeze all enforcement actions pending policy review, and authorize a full forensic audit. He also recommended that the board consider adopting new procedures for records access, fee transparency, and vendor relations. Carl then turned to Donna. She was sitting alone at the front table. Her torn bag of ice smelt conspicuously absent. Her face was blank. "Do you have a response?" Carl asked. Donna stood up slowly. Her voice was quiet. "I have served this association for 6 years. I have worked nights and weekends to keep this neighborhood safe and compliant. If there are errors in the ledger, they are clerical. If there are procedural issues, they are the result of inadequate training and support from the management company. I have never acted with malice. I have never acted for personal gain. And I resent the implication that I have done anything wrong." Ed stood up. "You threatened to revoke his business license. You tried to blacklist his contractor. You invented a fee that does not exist and recorded revenue that was never collected. That is not clerical. That is fraud." Another resident stood up. "I want a recall vote. If the board will not act, we will." Carl looked at the other board members. They were all staring at the table. Nobody spoke. Finally, the vice president, a woman named Laura Chen, stood up. "I move that we accept the treasurer's resignation effective immediately and appoint an interim treasurer pending the forensic audit. I also move that we adopt the attorney's recommendations in full and issue a public apology to any residents who were subjected to improper enforcement actions." The motion passed unanimously. Donna did not say anything. She just gathered her folder and walked out. The room erupted in applause. The forensic audit took another 3 weeks. It confirmed everything. Donna had been inflating revenue projections by inventing fees, recording them as collected, and then blaming budget shortfalls on enforcement gaps. Over 2 years, she had fabricated nearly $18,000 in phantom revenue. The actual cash was never collected because the fees never existed. It was not embezzlement in the traditional sense. It was ledger fraud designed to justify her own enforcement crusade and make herself look indispensable. The board referred the findings to the local district attorney. I do not know if charges were ever filed, but Donna did not show her face in the neighborhood again. She sold her house 4 months later and moved out of state. The new treasurer was a retired accountant who immediately implemented transparent ledger access, monthly financial summaries, and a resident portal where anyone could view their own payment history in real time. The board adopted new enforcement procedures requiring written notice with photographic evidence, a mandatory 10-day cure period, and a neutral appeals process. They also voted to refund any fees assessed in the past 2 years that could not be traced to a valid board authorization. I got a check for $240. Apparently, I had been charged a fabricated landscaping compliance fee at some point and never noticed. The HOA froze enforcement pending a policy rewrite. It took 6 months to finalize the new rules, and by then, the culture had changed. Compliance patrols stopped showing up at night with flashlights. Tow threats disappeared. The group email list became a place for actual neighborhood news instead of public shaming. And Donna's group post claiming I was in violation? The management company removed it and replaced it with a correction stating that the snow emergency declaration had never been properly authorized and that all related enforcement actions were void. That was the payoff. A records request that exposed contradictions and edits. Karen's favorite fee got proven imaginary in the ledger. The HOA froze enforcement pending a policy rewrite. Karen's group post got removed and replaced with a correction. All because I refused to move my car without seeing the paperwork. I still keep my payment confirmations in a binder. I still screenshot every HOA email. And I still have that ice scraper in my truck. Because winter in Fairbanks does not care about your HOA drama. Thanks for watching, and thanks for all the support.